Hello, welcome to another INFJ ramble. Today's topic is gonna be I don't really know how to piece it together. I'm gonna try my best though. Has to do with a couple of things. So I was having a conversation with my partner, and we were talking about how I listen to my intuition and how I hear voices. I know that sounds strange. And he's like, "What do you mean by you hear voices?" And I was like, "Well, I guess you could call them angels or guides or ancestors or um, sorry, I'm getting distracted. I'm watching some birds fly back and forth. Anyhow, so I was telling him, yeah, I consult my ancestors or my angels or ascended masters or whatever you want to call it. There's so many labels for everything, right? So many labels to describe the same thing. And he was like, so basically you're talking to your conscience, you're talking to your to yourself, to yourself. He didn't say higher self, he said you're talking to yourself. And then he was kind of like, well, so basically you're just asking questions and answering them yourself. And I thought about it, and yeah, that could be true. And then I asked him, like, well, when you pray, who are you praying to? Like, are you praying to yourself? Are you praying to God? And he had to think about it. Like, right, when we say prayers, we're usually praying to God, right? So is God yourself? Are you talking to yourself? And then it went into like talking about how everything is you, everything is God. You are a particle of God. Everything that you encounter is a particle of God. So when you're saying prayers or when you're consulting something, is that yourself? Or is that God? Or is God you? Or you God? You know what I mean? So, yeah, I was also thinking, like, I think everything is a particle of God. So, everything makes up the one, if that even makes sense. And you are an aspect of the one. Everything you touch, everything you encounter, everything you experience is God, basically in a different form or in a different vessel or casing, however you want to perceive it. It's God experiencing itself through many different dimensions of itself, right? And I was telling him, like, so what are angels? Angels are angles, right? Like you're seeing from different angles. Angels, angles. And so where do we come up with the word demon, And he was saying, like, well, maybe a demon is an angel in a negative um, light. And that made sense to me, if you're looking at life from many different angles, since life is multifaceted and multidimensional, you're seeing different angles or angels, right? And depending on where you're looking at or what you're consulting, you can be consulting something from a higher perspective or a lower perspective, but they're all angles, so dark and light angles, angels. And then we were talking about how did man even come up with the concept of God? And I told him, well, I think that it probably started when, they started experiencing elements of life that they didn't quite understand, and so when something would happen, it would seem miraculous, and they would attribute it to a divine being outside of themselves, such as a god, right? And that's how probably like religions were born, and that's how like um, I think the more intelligent beings decided to kind of use religion as a platform to control people, to control like people who, you know, weren't as inquisitive or curious, or weren't able to match your level of understanding. I mean, I could be like talking out my butt right now, but these are just like thoughts that were kind of like passing through my head, and a conversation that I had today that I thought was worth sharing. Sorry. But yeah, and then my partner was saying how he thinks God was the first magician. I mean, wrap your mind around that, really. I was like, wow, that's pretty mind-blowing perspective. He was like, yeah, God was the first magician. Like, he could perform things that humanity at that particular time could not understand or comprehend or grasp. And so they, would attribute these miracles to a higher being, but what it was they just lacked the understanding and the knowledge and the ability to comprehend what was going on at the moment. Isn't that how magicians like successfully pull off a magic trick? It's all a sleight of hand and an illusion, right? And because we don't understand how the magician performed the trick, we might think, wow, he has some kind of power that we don't possess. But in actuality, I think we all possess the power. We just don't understand it. It's our lack of understanding that makes it seem out of the ordinary and special and magical. You know what I mean? But anyhow, yeah, so all in all, I guess the whole point of this little ditty is that I feel like when we are talking to someone, we are talking to ourselves, or we are talking to God in a different form. And every time we pray or have the inclination to consult, like I said, there's so many angles or labels to it. Your higher self, you're consulting your higher self, you're consulting God, you're consulting angels, you're consulting your spirit guides, you're consulting your ancestors. I mean, what are all these labels? They're basically the same thing, but from a different angle or dimension based on what you want to like accomplish objectively. You know what I mean? So, for instance, if I want to accomplish a particular goal, I'd have to consult a particular angle of myself. Like, say I wanted to start a business, it's probably best to consult, successful entrepreneurs or bankers or people who can support that main objective, right? If you're looking to evolve spiritually, I think we have an inclination to consult more spiritually minded or religious people, but they're all different angles based on the objective that you want to reach. And they're all you, right? So you're consulting different aspects of you, different aspects of God, different angles, angels, in order to create and experience something in this lifetime that will help you to become more holistic and more more holistic, more whole in yourself. I don't know if that makes sense, but I thought that was interesting how, like, yeah, God is the first magician. You think about, like, when, like, foreigners would enter, like, primitive lands, like, they would see, like, for instance, Christopher Columbus sailing on his ship with his white sails and his, very different, like, appearance, and I'm sure, like, the native cultures that were more primitive in that time were like, whoa, they're experiencing, like, a deity or a god. When in actuality, it was just another human being that was a little bit more evolved, right? Yeah, I don't mean to offend anyone, but I'm just trying to make examples so that you can get a clear picture of what I'm trying to touch on. But yeah, something to think about. Food for thought, people. Food for thought. So I think we are all capable of um, accessing and experiencing like miraculous things based on our level of understanding and our level of awareness and mindfulness, you know? Just depends on how open you are and how much you've advanced on the scale of evolution. You know, my words are poorly chosen. I just don't know how else to express. Anyhow, if you learned something cool, if you didn't learn anything, that's cool too. Blessings to one and all. Amen.